There are 13 million unemployed people in Southern Europe, a figure that continues to worry and affect millions of people living here. Despite the fact that it is known for its rich history, stunning landscapes, and diverse cultures, nations in this region are struggling with severe unemployment problems. In this video, we're going to unveil what's behind these distressing numbers and dive deep down to the roots of this issue. Stay right on to the end as we uncover what the future might hold for Southern Europe. The high unemployment in Southern Europe has led to pessimism among young people. This is affecting their job-seeking motivation and mental health. They look at the lives of those ahead of them and wonder what the future holds for them, as what they see is not encouraging. Many live with their parents longer as they're unable to afford to take care of themselves. As a result, the younger generation of Southern Europe has so little hope of getting a sustainable job when they are ready for the labor market, and this is putting a strain on everyone. A staggering 13 million people across the European Union are without jobs. That is agreeably too high for a nation. What resulted in the collapse of Southern Europe's economy? According to Eurostat's last publication in November, Europe's current unemployment rate is around 5.9%. For countries in Southern Europe, this ranges between 2.5 to 13%. Italy at 7.9% and Portugal at 7.1%. But in countries like Spain and Greece, it is much higher than you can imagine. Spain has a current unemployment rate of 13%, and Greece has it at 11.6%. Meanwhile, Czechia, Poland, Germany, and Malta have it at 2.5, 2.8, 3, and 3% respectively. Interestingly, these countries are among the better performing ones in relation to employment. This could point at one specific thing. Living in Southern Europe is excruciatingly hard, and the poverty levels are biting. Families are left with no option but to make difficult decisions in order to make ends meet. The abysmal levels of unemployment in Southern Europe have their roots in the 2008 financial crisis, which led to a collapse in asset bubbles, increased government spending, and subsequent austerity measures, which hit small and medium-sized businesses hard, worsening youth unemployment. We can see that Southern Europe's economic challenges aren't just a product of modern times. They've been brewing for much longer. We'll explore how these historical decisions are still causing headaches today. 2008 saw Europe battle a Great Recession, which was kick-started by a poor balance of payments. Later, the European governments of that period had overspending, which led the continent into a budget deficit crisis. In the presence of all these, major banking and financial institutions collapsed, all contributing to the difficult time present in most European countries. In the middle of all these, Europe's debt was there, adding a crushing weight on a suffocating economy, thereby putting pressure on public services and the welfare states across Southern Europe. In a bid to remedy this dire situation, the government had to create some emergency policies. Government policies, one of the determining factors in a nation's prosperity or not. Now let's see if the government got it right back then. Well, the government adopted austerity measures, and they were put into place to resuscitate the alarming situation. Unfortunately, this caused some harm in itself. For one, public services become underfunded. What are these austerity measures really? These happen when government spending is cut in order to improve the national debt and its budget deficit. When it was put in place, it resulted in an average reduction in household income between 5% in some areas and 16% in other areas. Why did this turn out so badly? It happened this way because when there is a reduction in government spending, it causes an overall reduction in household income due to the cuts presented to public sector jobs. In addition, it also means benefits and pensions received by individuals would be removed and subsiding the transportation sector, which can create occupational mobility and the lack of accessibility to healthcare and education. There was a slow recovery in small and medium-sized businesses. In summary, there'd be less money in circulation. More reasons abound as to why the unemployment levels are so high. Still, despite the harm the government's austerity measures caused, this policy worsened the gap between the wealthy and poor, as the inequalities in the distribution of income became more pronounced. Clearly, those needing assistance from the government will suffer the most from the cutback, and they'd be left to fend for themselves in the absence of this assistance rendered by the government. The difficulty caused by this action of the government. These austerity measures affected Greece and Spain the most, hence the high levels of unemployment there. The levels of poverty continue to grow as they battle the social consequences, such as the emigration of qualified workers, social exclusion, and income inequalities. All these are expected when a nation doesn't perform acceptably on national levels. There'd be notable movement from the country by those seeking a more favorable economy, and this will cause economic activities to stall, as there will be a reduced inflow of people. Greece and Spain's economies have also been affected as a result of problems with the tourism industry after the global pandemic, the absence of vocational training, and the unaffordability of education. With the decline of economic activities within the nation, growth and development were no longer impressive, and this affected the number of people coming in. Before the pandemic, the numbers were pretty great, and the unemployment level was manageable. In addition, the unemployment rate across Europe had gone down by a significant amount only before. Just before the coronavirus pandemic, unemployment reduced from almost 12% in 2012 to 6.5% by the beginning of 2020. Well, the figures are against unemployment, as we saw the rates climb to 8% in midway through 2020. No doubt this situation could have been much worse if there had been no policy response to soften the pandemic's impact on unemployment levels. Before the pandemic, 5 million jobs were projected to be created over the next 10 years in the 4 largest countries of the euro area. Sadly, the outbreak of the pandemic has cut that estimate by up to 1.5 million. Those mostly are in low-skilled sectors. On the other hand, the pandemic has led to a rapid transformation in our work structure, such as digitalization, automation, and increased climate action. These transformations are positively hoped to accelerate the creation of more jobs. The war between Russia and Ukraine is working hard to knot most of the government's efforts to deal with unemployment. The progress the EU government has succeeded in making in good time is appearing non-existent and will continue to be difficult to see if the war doesn't stop. The nation is already seeing reduced growth, and migration is currently witnessing a stall. Anyway, kudos should be given to the government because of how far they have come in protecting jobs from the pandemic. It has been established that the use of job retention schemes reduced the unemployment rate by 2.5%. At least 4 million workers whose jobs were protected by this scheme can agree to its effectiveness. As the outlook on jobs is changing, the government shouldn't be in a hurry to take down policies on job retention schemes. Already, the slight cutback on them has brought about a reduced aggregate for total hours worked. What this means is the nation is hardly out of the waters, and disturbing the balance will mean more cases of unemployment. Many more people are looking for jobs in addition to those who are unemployed. What if I told you there's a silver lining to this crisis that's emerging? Another prominent cause for the high unemployment rate in Southern Europe is the sluggish economic growth during the mid-1990s. This made digitalization and transition into green energy to be delayed, thus contributing to the high unemployment rate. This delay has widened the gap between rural southern regions and more technologically advanced western and northern metropolitan areas. Hence, there are obvious gaps in terms of development between these regions. While the North and West embraced this change and were swift in adapting, the South was rather slow. Now we look at another factor: strict employment regulations. The strict employment regulations in countries like Spain, Italy, and Greece led to higher hiring and firing costs, causing employers to prefer temporary contracts and finally resulting in unemployment. These contracts often offer limited training and low wages. This results in minimal training opportunities and low wages, contributing to structural unemployment and job insecurity, particularly in sectors like hospitality and construction and small and mid-sized businesses. Education also played a role in the high numbers of unemployment. It has been noted that a significant portion of the population in these countries has a limited education, and even university graduates often lack necessary workplace skills due to inadequate educational systems. A large portion of the 25 to 64 age group has only a lower secondary school education. There are also not enough opportunities that offer people the chance to go through vocational training for in-demand professions, such as medical professionals, carers, and transportation. The situation is worsened by the relatively low ranking of public universities here on the international stage and their weak connections to the job market. Among other measures put in place to control unemployment, the European Union has been taking initiatives to help youth unemployment rates through training programs and grants. The EU is focusing on addressing regional inequalities and has allocated funds for skill development and job-matching programs. Southern European countries are also working on structural reforms to address issues like low labor migration. Most of this effort is focused in Spain and Greece because the Youth Unemployment Initiative is run in states where youth unemployment rates are greater than 25%. Greece and Spain fit perfectly with a 30% youth unemployment rate. According to the European Commission, the initiative works to support young people who are not in education, employment, or training, including the long-term unemployed or those not registered as job seekers. The initiative majorly provides funding for education and training to develop more highly qualified youth. It also attempts to close the youth unemployment gap and ultimately reduce overall unemployment levels. However, it'll take more expansion to get where it ought to be. As seen in Spain, about a third of young Spaniards leave school without any qualification, while only a quarter of school leavers enter vocational training. Spain will receive 70 billion euros worth of grants from the EU's Next Generation's Recovery Scheme between 2021 and 2024 to help with the improvement of the digital economy, vocational training, and the creation of active labor market policies. When applied, the YEI is apparently a very effective initiative to raise employment levels in these areas. The Greek government is not sleeping on this opportunity to improve the welfare of its people. Grants provided are being used to increase employment levels and equip the youth for the labor market. In 2022, Greece took advantage of the training to run a digital training program for over 1,000 unemployed young people. This training was done in an area where demand for the skill was high, and because of it, 1,000 young Greek youth became employed. This initiative is capable of improving Southern Europe's economy as it raises the GDP. When more people have access to more training, then the levels of labor productivity and the number of goods being created within the economy will improve. Further employment would also raise GDP through the increase in disposable income and subsequent higher levels of consumer spending within the economy. The high unemployment in Southern Europe is a complex mix of historical, economic, and social blend. What do you think about this new development? From the lingering effects of the 2008 financial crisis to the challenges of the educational sector, labor market rigidity, the struggles of the youth, and regional disparities, Southern Europe has quite a way to go to change its fortune.